Well, hello, our fellow friends, our fellow neighbors, and our fellow shining stars. Our next trolley stop is here, and our next trolley stop is now. Welcome back to another all-new episode of the PR from the Heart Neighborly Reviews Bookcast. To be precise, we have reached episode number 14. That is the 14th trolley stop here at the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast. My name is John Masiulionis, the manager of PR from the Heart. Things are very special today. Well, things are always special each and every day when we're here, but the trolley has traveled from San Diego, California, all the way to the beautiful studios that you see right here at Point Park University in downtown Pittsburgh. And we're not two squares on a screen. Joining me in person, traveling in Pittsburgh to meet my good friend, our fellow neighbor, our co-host here at the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast. You remember him and you love him as the beloved Mr. McFeely on the long-running children's television program, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. We know him and we love him as David Newell. David, thank you for the wonderful invitation. Thank you for opening up your beautiful city to me and to PR from the Heart. And it's great to finally meet you in person and to do one of these amazing bookcasts together.
Well, welcome to the neighborhood. And here we are. We're usually doing it via
Zoom. Yes.
Zoom, that's right. But here we are in person in the beautiful Point Park studio with two books to talk about.
Yes, this is going to be a very special bookcast, as David and I have alluded to already thus far. We're going to be sharing the brand new children's book series momentarily, courtesy of one of our newest neighbors at PR from the Heart. She's not just a regular children's author, she is the creator of the Real Doctor series for children. She's a veterinarian out in the Portland, Oregon area. We're going to be reviewing Dr. Cherice Roth's two brand new children's books, What's a Real Doctor and What Does a Real Doctor Look Like? And in addition, Dr. Roth is going to be joining David and I in another studio here at Point Park University, so you will be able to see her. She'll be traveling virtually to join us from the Portland, Oregon area. And also, of course, as you know, here at the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast, we are proud to support the wonderful work of Reading is Fundamental Pittsburgh, which is the Pittsburgh chapter of the largest national non-for-profit children's literacy organization in the United States. Did you know that Reading is Fundamental Pittsburgh last year alone provided over 80,000 children's books to over 23,000 children in need? Of course, the initiative of Reading is Fundamental Pittsburgh is to be able to provide children's books, developmental tools, and resources for children that come from low-income families, especially in Pittsburgh. So we here at PR from the Heart and the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast are proud to contribute and donate each and every month to Reading is Fundamental Pittsburgh. We encourage all of you, our listeners and viewers, our friends and neighbors, and of course our fellow shining stars, that you can pledge your support for Reading is Fundamental Pittsburgh. No donation is too large, no donation is too small in the process. rifpittsburgh.org/donate. And actually joining us as part of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast, episode number 14, as part of Reading is Fundamental Pittsburgh, Jordan Williams, who is the program manager of the Book Babies program with Reading is Fundamental Pittsburgh, is going to be joining us. So this is a special stacked edition of the Bookcast, David.
It is, but we'll do the books first, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And we encourage all of you who, of course, are tuning in. If this is your first time joining us here in our neighborhood at the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast, you can pledge your support for PR from the Heart and the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast by subscribing to the PR from the Heart YouTube channel, and to share this very special trolley stop that is episode number 14 of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast on your favorite social media platforms of your choosing. So, David, as we mentioned, the trolley doesn't have to travel very far because we are all here together. So we're going to be diving into the pages of the first installment in the Real Doctor series, which is What's a Real Doctor? Now, just one of the things to be able to let those tuning in know is the fact that Dr. Roth is a veterinarian.
Yes.
And veterinarians, of course, provide amazing support and amazing assistance for animals, whether it be dogs or cats or horses or chickens. Veterinarians are really important parts of our neighborhood.
Yes, but they are doctors.
They are doctors, yes.
And that's what this book, What's a Real Doctor, that's the first one, right?
Correct.
We're going to talk about that one first. I've been reading them, and I've made some notes.
Yes.
And I'll begin.
Yes.
Well, the book begins with Clara's dad and Tristan and Cooper's mom. They're dropped off at school, the kids, okay? And they were excited to see each other, and they wave goodbye to their parents. And then Clara turns to Tristan and Cooper and says, "Did you know that my dad is a real doctor?" And Tristan and Cooper both say, "Well, our mom is a doctor too." It reminds me of kids saying, "No, I have this. No, mine is," that's what it reminds me of.
That's right.
But my dad is a real doctor, says Clara, meaning that he's a MD, I suppose that's what she means. Our mom is a veterinarian. Clara thinks about that for a moment and says, "Is that a real doctor, a veterinarian?" And Cooper said, "Well, of course it is." And then Clara says, "My dad went to school for a long time and studied hard." That's important for children to know that. It takes work to be a doctor.
Agreed.
And our mom did too, said Tristan, so a veterinarian works hard too. And what follows in the book is a discussion of what each parent does. And then they say, "Well, our mom gives shots to make sure her patients stay well." And then I think that one of the others said, "Well, my dad does too." And then our mom figures out what is wrong and knows how to fix it. And Clara says, "Yes, my dad does that too." And then Clara says, "My dad lets patients and their family know if they need surgery." And Cooper says, "My mom does that too." It just they keep going back and forth and back and forth. And then Tristan says, "Sometimes at night, my mom does surgery for pets." And families that need her most, and no matter what the critter is. And in the book, there's an illustration. It shows mom operating on some sort of a critter. I couldn't quite figure out what the critter was, but she's operating on the critter, as they call it. And well, Clara thinks for a moment. "Oh, my dad doesn't do that." In other words, he doesn't go to people's house and do surgery. But after surgery, my dad makes sure his patients feel better and writes a medicine prescription. Tristan says, "Yep, my dad does that too." There's a little humor running through the book.
A little back and forth, yes.
Back and forth, and you know kids do this. My dad does this, my mom does this. And finally, after a couple more back and forth, my dad does this, my mom does that, Clara says, "You are right, Tristan and Cooper. Your mom is a real doctor, just like my dad." In other words, they've convinced that veterinarians and MDs are both real doctors. But I think that Cooper feels that his mom is just a little bit cooler. Because she gets to doctor every animal. That's maybe a little bit cooler. And but then when Clara's dad picks her up after school, she says, "You know, Tristan and Cooper's mom is a doctor too, just like you, Dad." And oh yes, and this is again, it's a short book, and the book ends with Dad saying, "Yes, she is. But she works on animals. So maybe she's a little bit cooler than me," the dad says, sort of humorously.
Yep.
And so that's how the book ends, on that statement by Dad saying, "Yeah, she's a little bit cooler than me." In other words, he's playing along. He wasn't going to get in the competition. He was agreeing that both doctors work hard. And what I liked about the book, I like the back and forth, but I also like the fact that she mentioned that you have to study, and it's hard work being a doctor, and the importance of being a doctor. I've almost forgot. And there's a statement on the back of the book, and I agree with it. It says on the back cover, it says that the book. The children's discussion leaves the reader a little bit more confident and informed on what veterinarians do that makes them real doctors. And I think that comes out in the book, and I think that's very helpful. Yes. But it's a very simple book, but it has very important questions in it. You know, it's a quick read, but it's a wonderful series that she's created about doctors and veterinarians. You know, if I would be a doctor, I don't think I could be, but I think I would pick to be a veterinarian because I love animals. Yes. And you know what I was thinking about? Veterinarians, well, doctors have two main studies, two different bodies to study. Veterinarians have
They've
horses,
got a wide range.
reptiles, rabbits, chickens. They have to know about the makeup of so many different animals.
They do, yes.
And it opens up, the book opens up discussion about that too, I think.
It's a great conversation starter.
Yes.
And I think that, you know, a lot of the times during the pandemic, we took a lot for granted. We took a lot of people for granted. And we now know more than ever before, David, that animals really are our best friends. Whether it be if we have a dog or a cat or a gerbil, or even if we go to the zoo and we visit the giraffes or, you know, the zebras or whatever the case might be, someone has to be there to take care of those animals when they're sick.
Yes.
And that's where veterinarians come in. And, you know, also, I really like the way that Dr. Roth, that Cherice really cares the fact, and she states very directly how veterinarians are so important. In certain aspects of life, sometimes people can come across as elitist or snobbish, like, well, I'm a doctor, or I'm this kind of person. And it's always important to know that we're all the same. We all have equal value. And just really, like, leading into being introduced to Dr. Roth and her books, I never actually knew a veterinarian who was a children's author. So she's weaving in both of her loves, which is her care of children and her care of animals, together in such a super beautiful way. And that's just the first book in the Real Doctor series.
But she's interpreting her line of work for children and showing how important veterinarians are. And in turn, I hope that the children reading this catch the love that she has for animals. I worry about animals. I try to donate to a lot of the agencies the charities that support animals, and I do my best when I can. At any rate, that's the first book, which was What's a Real Doctor? The next is the second in a series, I guess, right?
That is correct. What does a real doctor look like?
Well,
and some of the themes are the same between book 1 and book 2.
Yes.
But book 2 also has its own interesting dynamics, its own soul signature, if you will, as well too. So David, let's go inside the pages of What Does a Real Doctor Look Like?
Okay, we'll do that. There it is. What does a real doctor look like? Well, I have some notes on that too.
You do?
I do.
David Newell's trusted notes.
My notes are right here.
The name really reviews Bookcast notes.
Book 2 in the Real Doctor series for children. Well, in the foreword, Dr. Roth thanks all the people, which I like. She thanks all the people who helped her see that she too could become a real doctor. And that's important. You know, it's not magic. You have to work at everything you want to do. But I think she makes that point in the book. Well, the story begins with Kaylon looking at herself in the mirror and thinking, I want to be a doctor. But I don't think doctors look like me. That's what Kaylon is, a little girl. And she turns to her sister, whose name is Kaylee. Do you think I look like a doctor? And Kaylee says she doesn't know. And well, let's ask Mom what she thinks. So down they go, and they rush into the living room where her mother is working on a customer's hair. I think the mother has an in-home salon where she cuts hair and trims hair and so forth. And so the customer is sitting there, and Mom's working on her hair. And Kaylon asks Mom, do I look like a doctor? And Mom says, of course you do. And the customer sitting in the chair turns to them and says, girls, do you know what I do? And I'm a doctor. And the girls say, you are? You're a doctor? And then Mom says that the customer in the chair is her cousin, mom's cousin, and her best friend. And she can answer your questions, girls. And the girls were so excited. They began to speak so fast, it was hard to follow their conversation. And girls, said the doctor, hang on. Now let me think about your questions. And she told them that doctors can be men and women and anywhere in between. And they can be any color or any ethnic group. And the girls are fascinated, and they have more questions. And can doctors be tall? Can doctors be short? Hispanic or indigenous? They are every background, says the doctor. Oh, and I think if you're reading the book in class or even at home to kids, here's a chance to explain maybe some words. They might not know the word indigenous or Hispanic, and it's a chance to, you can stop during the book and discuss different topics that are brought up, like different words.
It can be a well-paced conversation.
Yes, yeah. And I think the books, both of these books, I think are really designed for, you could read it to a preschooler, but I think they're for a little older child, maybe early elementary. Well, at any rate, the girls keep asking questions. Tall, short, fat, or thin? Yes, the doctor answered. But, she added, doctors are not determined by physical traits or age or color, which is so important. Doctors are hard workers. Doctors can be moms, dads, brothers, sisters, daughters, sons, aunts, and uncles, the whole range. Doctors are all colors, orientations, different abilities, shapes, and sizes. No two doctors are alike, which I think is very important. But we are all hard workers, good students, and caring persons. And I think that's an important message.
It's a really good message.
It's not like magic. You don't be a doctor without hard work. But that can be a discussion, I think, as you read the book too. It's not magic. You have to work at it, but determination. And then the doctor told the girls, yes, a doctor can look just like you. And Kaylon and Kaylee looked at their mom and said, then that's just what we will be, doctors. Now, there's some discussion that can come in there too about the hard work it takes, how many years you have to get established. Hard work. But that can all be added by the teacher or the parent as they read the book. And then the girls went back to their room, but they paused to look in the mirror, and they said to each other, doctors look just like us. And that's how the book ends. And I think it's a wonderful little story.
I love that.
And the fact that doctors can be anything, but what I think is important is she leaves it open a little bit for the teacher to fill in about the hard work it might take to be a doctor, or it does take to be a doctor. And that's what I emphasize. It's not magic. You know, you don't decide, well, I'll hang out my shingle tomorrow. It's hard work. But I think the two books are certainly well worth reading to children or to a class. But again, I think it's probably late preschool, early elementary is the age for the two books. But I hear there's another one coming along too.
It's interesting that you mentioned a couple of things with regards to what does a real doctor look like. There's the endearing messages that Dr. Roth at Cherice is sharing, the importance of hard work and dedication, that we're instilling these sorts of values for our little ones, especially if you want to be a doctor.
Yes.
It's not just, you take a test and you get your license.
No.
It involves years of schooling, years of education, years of research, years of learning, and it's so important to stay dedicated to your craft. It's also important, David, we know that children's minds and hearts are like sponges, and especially when it comes to the believability, it's very easy when you have someone that's can go to a child and say, well, you can't do this. And the little one can pick up on that, and that's something that could stay with them for the rest of their lives. And so it's important that, whether children wish to be doctors or broadcasters or mailmen, for example, male men or male women, that they know that they literally can do and be anything, to dream big. So I think that that's a really endearing message from this book especially. It's really a fabric that is part of the overall essence of Dr. Roth's, of Cherice's work, to let kids know that they can be anything that they want to be if they're willing to be dedicated, committed to their craft in the process, because patience pays.
That's right, I agree. And I think that comes out in the book. But she lets it open too, and I think that is part of what a parent could do, or what a teacher could do, is go into the hard work and study that it takes to be a doctor.
Agreed.
And it's interesting too that the two books sort of complement each other, because a veterinarian works just as hard. They are a real doctor, and for a different species in a way.
That's true.
And I think it's interesting. I've never read books like this before, but they're simple too, simple books, but there's so much depth to it.
There is.
And it's and it gives the reader a chance to interpret, or the parent to help interpret what's going on. And you can pick any sentence out of the book in a way and discuss it with the child.
Yes.
And I think that I think is the important part of reading. It's not so much, I think I've mentioned this before, that you could read a child the telephone book.
Yep.
Yes. And you wouldn't, of course. I'm using that as an example.
Correct.
But it's the closeness, it's the love that sharing a book between a parent and child can create. And that's what I think helps children learn to read, or that gives them a bigger incentive to learn to read, that love that they're getting from the parent, because it is love.
It is.
Reading a book to a child. And every night it's maybe a different book, or read that book again.
It very much creates a bonding experience between the parent or the grandparent and the little one, while also reinforcing the fact, again, as we had talked about, how the little one growing up can be anything that they want to be. The last thing that I wanted to mention before Dr. Roth joins us here on the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast episode number 14 is that the message of, no matter if you're male or female, no matter what your race, your color, your creed actually is, you remember during your time with Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood very early on that there was segregation when it came to swimming, that African Americans could not swim in the same swimming pools as Caucasians, as whites. And I think that we have come a long way since we did during the late 1960s, but there still might be some people that say, well, only X and X people can be doctors, right? But we've come a lot when it comes to female empowerment. We've come a lot we've come very far when it comes to civil rights. So I just really love the fact how, again, no matter if you're Catholic or Jewish, no matter if you're African American or Caucasian, if you're male or female, that you can do anything that you want, that doctors especially come from all different walks of life. And it's so important to be able to embrace them, because they are here to help and to support in the process.
Right. We still have a long way to go.
Yes.
But we, every book like this can help.
Yes.
And books can help too. It can help with any subject, and it's so important. I think that's why we do this bookcast, because books are tangible, and so are iPhones too. But you can't touch it. It's a different relationship. It's
a completely different experience, and one of the things that your longtime neighbor and friend, Mr. Rogers, always shared is he used the term resources of care.
Yes.
And I really believe that children's books, especially Dr. Roth's, they are resources of care. So we encourage all of you, our listeners and viewers, our friends and neighbors, and of course our fellow shining stars, you can head on over to Amazon.com. If that is your preferred online vehicle of your choosing, you can purchase both of Dr. Roth's books, What's a Real Doctor and What Does a Real Doctor Look Like? We've also included her official website and her social media platforms below so that you can continue the wonderful conversation post Neighborly Reviews Bookcast, and one of the many ways that you can support Dr. Roth to let her know that she's doing wonderful and much needed work for children, parents, families, educators, those who want to be veterinarians and doctors, and those who love great children's books. You can leave a 5-star review for either What's a Real Doctor and or What Does a Real Doctor Look Like? So David, we're going to be shifting studios here, so the background is going to be a little bit different, but we're going to be joined by Dr. Cherice Roth, who's going to be sharing a little bit more about her author journey, a little bit more about her wonderful children's book series, the Real Doctor series, and then Jordan Williams, the Book Babies program manager from Reading is Fundamental Pittsburgh, will be joining us as well. And again, we want to give a little shout out to the hardworking team, to Tara, to Wayne, and to Olivia. They are bright lights, not only shining stars, but they are some of the most beautiful bright lights in the city of Pittsburgh. They are working very hard behind the scenes here for our April edition of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast. So we'll be back right after this with Dr. Cherice Roth as episode number 14 of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast continues here at PR from the Heart from the Center of Media Innovation at Point Park University. Once again, our listeners and viewers, our friends and neighbors, and of course our fellow shining stars, welcome back here to the Center for Media Innovation at Point Park University in downtown Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. You are tuned in to episode number 14 of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast. David Newell and myself, John Masiulionis, we are having a wonderful time here at the Center for Media Innovation at Point Park University in downtown Pittsburgh. We've changed studios just temporarily for a very special conversation that we're going to be having from the TV studio into the podcast studio. Again, special thanks to Tara, to Wayne, and to Olivia working hard behind the scenes, along with our assistant Ling at PR from the Heart, who are doing wonderful work to be able to bring this special in-person, in-studio edition of the Bookcast to form and to shape. David, know that we've been having a great conversation thus far in episode number 14 of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast, talking about the Real Doctors series for children. And joining us all the way, the trolley now does have to travel. Okay. Going from San Diego, just right outside of the Portland area. Well, technically, the trolley, see, I'm so used to this being like 2 squares in a screen. So the trolley's going, the trolley went from San Diego to Pittsburgh. So now we go all the way back across the country from Pittsburgh out to just outside of the Portland, Oregon area. We're going to be talking about her wonderful and exciting author journey and a little bit more in depth on the Real Doctor series for children. She is an amazing veterinarian, taking care of many of our animal friends. She is a very gifted children's author. She's also a wonderful mom as well, too. Joining us, one of the members, the proud members of the PR from the Heart family, Dr. Cherice Roth, joining us here as a special guest on episode number 14 of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast. Cherice, thank you for joining David and I here today for our April Bookcast episode number 14. How are things with you today?
I am well. Yeah, it's my pleasure to join you guys. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's our pleasure. It's our pleasure. Now, as David and I had shared during our review of your books just a short time ago, you're a veterinarian, which is absolutely awesome, I have to say.
Yes.
You're doing such a beautiful job of taking care of our animal friends whenever they're sick, whenever they're going through any sort of challenge. You provide the necessary and dedicated care and support. Could you share with our listeners and viewers, our friends and neighbors, and of course our fellow shining stars, how your author journey began and how the Real Doctor series for children came to be?
Well, you know, it's really the journey became a real thing, so to speak, once I became a mom. And, you know, I woke up one morning at 3 o'clock in the morning and I just started thinking about, you guys read the book 1, Tristan and Cooper are my sons. And they just get this very unique view of the world of birth and life and empathy and helping and all of those really important lessons from such a young age because of what I do. And then comparing that to how I grew up. I mean, I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, half in Cleveland, half outside of Dallas, Texas. And I didn't meet my first veterinarian until my third year of undergrad in college. And so it's just such a major difference. And once I started thinking, we're helpers, how do I help other children start to see themselves in these professions that they may not actually be exposed to? And so the Real Doctor series was born.
I love that.
Well, first of all, thanks for being a vet. I'm an animal lover, and I try to donate to all the animal rescue agencies I can. I was telling John that a little earlier, and I was reading the books. They may look simple on the surface, but they connect to the core of some important messages, and especially during these difficult times. And why was it important for you to write these books at this time? Was the epidemic one of the reasons you wrote the book, or the books, or was it something else, or both of those?
Yeah, timing is everything, right? And actually the pandemic really didn't have much to do with the books, except, me and my kids were together every single day for, nearly 2 years, right? And so I got to have this very different view of how they see me, how I work, how much I work, and what are the things that get me up in the morning to have me take off my mom hat, to put on my veterinarian hat, and how do I justify that? And so some of the things that I noticed myself doing is I would come back, I would talk about my day so that they understood that it was vital for them to share their mom with these critters that need me in that moment. And it's a big lesson, right? It teaches you selflessness in the right times, but also being able to talk about, what? Mommy needs a break, so I'm not going to work today. And also helps you to talk about self-care and why it's so important to fill your own cup. So that's really how those messages started coming together. And the discussion pieces around it were honestly just as simple as that. And then once I started putting the books together, especially book 2, I just felt like, where was this when I was little?
I think we both thought that. Where were these books when we were little? And they were so helpful, and they've helped me now. I just want to add that my 2 favorite pets that I've had over the years were mastiffs. We had 2 mastiffs, Gus and Bear. And they were both 225 pounds, a lot of dog. And I miss them so. Unfortunately, big dogs like that have a shorter lifespan, right? But Gus lived to 12 years old.
Oh, wow. Wow, nice job.
And I just thought that wasn't a question, but my point being that you put everything together so well, and John and I were discussing earlier how the book lends itself for discussion. You can stop at any point and talk about what we just read, or a teacher could. And so I love them. And as you said, I wish I wish you had written the books when you were 5 years old. But thank you for that.
It's precocious, but not quite that precocious.
David, you're obviously reminding all of us that Cherice is not only one amazing profession, but 2 amazing professions.
Yes.
The fact that you're a vet and a children's author. Cherice, what are your favorite parts of each job? When you wake up every morning, what are the things that really make your soul just really, really come to life?
So for the children's book author part of it, it really is having these ideas in my head and what I think that they look like, and then seeing them on paper for the first time is always just, your heart just swells. But then more than that, it's watching other children react, because I mean, my boys are Tristan and Cooper. They're 6 and 7 years old right now, and they look at the books now and they're like, "Yeah, Mom, your books are okay," because because children keep you humble. But to see it in the eyes of another child that very much so probably grew up the way that I did. The first doctor I met was obviously my pediatrician. I didn't meet an other kind of doctor until much later in my life. Didn't meet my first veterinarian again until I was in my 3rd year of college. And so I love being able to see that aha moment as far as being the children's book author. My favorite part of being a veterinarian is surgery, hands down. The more difficult the procedure, the better, because you get to see these families at a time when they are really just feeling so distraught because they love this little critter or big critter, depending on David's brood over there. It's so rewarding to be able to walk into the operating room knowing that you have the skill set, that if this pet is going to make it, it is going to be because of you and your team. And I stress the team part of that because I am nothing without my veterinary nurses at my side. The veterinarians typically run the anesthesia, select the drugs, all of those sorts of things. But it is those veterinary nurses that make sure our patients are comfortable, make sure that they stay alive during the procedure while we're scrubbing, doing the things. And so it's very much so kind of the sacred dance that happens in the operating room. And human surgeons know this dance too. But there's this moment where after you've turned off the gas and your job is done and the pet wakes up and you get to walk out and tell that family they're going to be okay. That again, it's kind of that aha moment, but it's just the sheer joy that you're able to share that is because of the time and the effort and the tears, blood that you've shed from yourself often to get them to that point of joy, and it makes it worth it.
You know that what you just described there about when the surgery is over and you walk out and tell the families the pet is okay, that might be your next book. That would be very interesting to have that drama going on. I don't know, just as you were saying that, I was imagining book 3. but
I do actually have a book 3 slated, but that might be book 4.
Oh, okay. And I was thinking as I was reading, is there one thing that you hope the children and parents and educators will learn after reading the books? Is there one thing or a couple things that you hope that you've accomplished by the books?
Absolutely. Doctors are just like us because we are doctors. And I think that the very last line of book 2 really sums it all up in that doctors look just like us.
Yes.
And that is so important on so many different levels. Every one of us. And that helps with patient advocacy, trust in the medical system. The more you have medical professionals look like the population that they are serving, the better the medical care can be, the better the medical compliance. So the patient doing what the doctor asks them to do, because the trust is there, because there isn't that inherent, I don't know if you have my best interest at heart. So my message, and this is to the parents as well, and to educators, it's not too late. Being a children's book author is my 3rd career, actually. I was a biochemist before I became a veterinarian, and then veterinarian and children's book author. It's not too late, because doctors look like all of us. Some people come from their 20s and are red hot into the medical profession. And for some of us, it takes us a while. We need those life educations before we roles like that. And so it can be all of us.
We've already alluded to it between talking about Dr. Roth's books and then our conversation right here. But on the back of What Does a Real Doctor Look Like, it shares, be on the lookout for other new additions to the Real Doctor series for children. And as we like to say here on the Bookcast, and also through PR from the Heart, we don't like to give away the whole kit and caboodle. I still want to know who actually said that, because that sounds like something you'd hear at like the turn of the century, like vaudeville. Don't give away the whole kit and
caboodle.
The kit and caboodle. But could you give us a sneak peek at what's to come in book 3 in the Real Doctor series for children without giving away the whole kit and caboodle?
Absolutely. So, book 3 is What the Real Doctor Do. And what this does is it steps a bit back from the medical profession, because there are all sorts of different types of doctors. There are PhDs, there are JDs, there are MDs, of course, of course, veterinarians will be in the book, but there are many types of doctors. And again, the point of this is to have that child and that family see themselves in that profession, because that's how representation starts. That's how your imagination gets the spark to be anything. And so it will some doctors that there are, what they specialize in, how they get there, and why what they contribute is so important.
I love that.
I was thinking, as I was reading the book, is one of the 2 sisters you in the book? Are you one of the sisters?
Great question. Those 2 girls are actually my 2 nieces. So those are real children. So much book 1, Tristan and Cooper are my children.
Correct.
And so in the book, there's the illustration, and the background of that illustration is I'm sitting in a hairdresser's chair. That's my cousin Amelia. And she has done my hair since I was little bitties. As soon as she could hold a comb, she has been doing our hair and taking care of our hair. And of course I moved away, so now I have to pay for it. But her 2 daughters understand the assignment. These girls are driven, they read, they're already bilingual, they're just getting it. And I think so much of that is because we had a very similar conversation to what happened in a Real Doctor look like. Mm-hmm. And it is definitely that one of them wants to be a veterinarian, the other is still working on trying to decide. But it really was, I mean, you're talking veterinarians, it's 1.7% of the profession that's African American. Like, where do you go to find yourself, to see yourself in that position? And so those 2 girls are real. They're Kaylin and Kylie, and they're just incredible young women. And I can't wait to see what they do, because they're on it. They're so on it. They see it. They know that they can do it. And their mom supports them, their dad supports them, and it's going to be something magical.
Well, that message comes through the book, and I'm so glad you picked girls to be the subject. That's wonderful. It just empowers everything, I think. So thank you so much for these books. I think of all the books on the Bookcast, and I'm an animal lover, I think I enjoyed your books the best, reading them. And as we said earlier, they on the surface they look so simple, but there are so many deep educational points in it.
There are, yeah.
And it's wonderful. I have 6 grandkids. I'm going to read these to them. I'm not all 6. 2 of them are teenagers. But I'm going to take these books home because they too are animal lovers. So thank you so much for being a veterinarian, an author, and biochemist, right?
Yes. That's right. And mom.
And mom, too, yes.
By far, as being a mom. Tell you guys, because everybody asks, oh my gosh, you're a veterinarian. So 6 dogs. I have 1 cat. I have turkeys, ducks, chickens. We have a giant tortoise. We have goats, pigs, and
what?
And snakes.
And what was
and rabbits and snakes.
Oh,
rabbits and snakes. Wow.
And snakes?
Of course, we have the obligatory goldfish too. I mean,
do we have time for one more question?
Oh yeah, go ahead, David.
Of all of the animals, which one is there one that you are not as fond of as others? I can tell you mine, because is there one that is the most difficult to examine, or
By far, it's the turkeys, specifically the toms. So like, I mean, I'm responsible for all of these critters, and so we make sure that we, everybody's doing well. But here's what grinds my gears about the turkeys. It's not that they're hard to examine, but when they're out and about, I'm usually like on calls or something like that if I'm home, and the toms will come right up to the window of the office, and as I'm talking, well, every time I talk. So I have to start prefacing my Zoom calls with, look, if you think you hear a turkey, you do. It's because you do actually hear a turkey.
But that has to be a great conversation starter. Like, depending upon who you're talking to, it's like, wait a minute. I'm because when you hear a turkey, you can just like imagine, is it Thanksgiving? Am I hearing things? And it's just like, this has been fantastic. And we encourage all of you, of course, our listeners and viewers, our friends and neighbors, and of course, our fellow shining stars. We've included Dr. Roth's official website along with her social media platforms in the description below of episode number 14 of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast. If Amazon is your preferred online vehicle of choice, you can purchase your copies of What's a Real Doctor and What Does a Real Doctor Look Like? And of course, David, as we always encourage here at the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast, in addition to leaving a 5-star review for Dr. Roth's books, because that's one of the many ways that you can pledge your support for Cherice and let her know that she's doing wonderful and much needed work for children, parents, families, educators, those who love great children's books, and those who love animals. You can also head over to your local library your favorite children's or independent bookstore. And of course, if they do have Dr. Roth's books, that's great. But if they don't, you can make a wonderful recommendation, because, I mean, how many children's books are out there that are written by veterinarians that have a passion and a care for both animals and children as well, too. So it's always great to make those recommendations to those who own or operate independent bookstores, children's bookstores, or your favorite children's library in the process. These books need to be in every single library and bookstore across the country.
They do.
Yeah. This has been absolutely wonderful, Dr. Roth. Thank you so much again for your time. I think that maybe one of the questions that I did have, do you prefer Cherice, or is it Dr. Roth, or is it, because they're kind of interchangeable, but we've been...
Yeah. Great question. A lot of people will call me Dr. Cherice, and I'm okay with that. I'm fine with that. Most of the people when I'm in hospital just call me Roth. And so that's kind of a bit weird, but that's,
Does anybody call you Cher?
They don't. My nickname when I was little was Riri, because my siblings, I'm the oldest of 5 kids, so the kids would all call me Riri because they couldn't pronounce Cherice.
Oh.
But that's as close. Nobody's ever called me Cher, though.
Oh, there we go. Well, David, you are...
Yeah, well, that's the first thing I saw when I saw your name. I saw Cher. But thank you for these books. It's been a wonderful talk to you. I hope someday we can all meet in person.
That would be lovely.
If you're ever in the Pittsburgh neighborhood, catch the trolley and stop off and say hello to us.
You got it. Absolutely. Thank you guys so much for having me. It was an absolute blast.
Oh, we appreciate your time, Cherice. And then, of course, to conclude episode number 14 of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast, joining us back in the TV studio at Point Park University at the Center for Media Innovation, Jordan Williams, the Book Babies Program Manager of Reading is Fundamental Pittsburgh, who we proudly support here at the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast. I am John Masiulionis. This is David Newell. We will be back at it to close out this month's Trolley Stop, episode number 14 of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast, here at the Center for Media Innovation in downtown Pittsburgh, right after this. Well, we have one more trolley stop within the trolley stop. That is episode number 14 of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast. Of course, David Newell and myself back here at the Center for Media Innovation at Point Park University. Special thanks again to Dr. Cherice Roth for joining us, the creator of the Real Doctor series for children. And over the course of the past year, we have been proud to support here at the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast, David, Reading is Fundamental Pittsburgh, which is the Pittsburgh chapter of the largest national non-for-profit children's literacy organization in the United States. They do such amazing work. And we're now proud to take our affiliation with Reading is Fundamental Pittsburgh, and we're all coming together. This is great. Now that we're starting to come out of the pandemic and we're all able to meet one another in the process, we are very blessed to be joined by one of the shining stars. This is the point where, again, these shining stars always have so much mileage. They always travel aboard the trolley with me. The Book Babies program manager of Reading is Fundamental Pittsburgh, Jordan Williams, is joining us to conclude episode number 14 of the Bookcast. Thank you for spending some time with us here today.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm so glad to be here.
I am such an advocate of your work, the work that Reading is Fundamental Pittsburgh does. For those who are regular supporters, viewers, neighbors of us here at the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast, they might be a little bit familiar and know even a little bit more about Reading is Fundamental Pittsburgh, but for those of our listeners and viewers, our friends and neighbors, and our fellow shining stars who are newer to our neighborhood, could you share with us a little bit more about the mission of Reading is Fundamental Pittsburgh and how your organization helps to serve children, parents, families in the Pittsburgh area, right here?
Yes, absolutely. So Reading is Fundamental Pittsburgh is a children's literacy organization, and we work to lessen the literacy and opportunity gaps in neighborhoods of need in Pittsburgh and Wilkinsburg. Every year we serve over 20,000 children and get over 100,000 books into their hands.
Okay.
Yes. And all of our books come wrapped in programming that keep kids excited about reading, and a network of literacy support that follows them from birth all the way into their teens. Along the way, we also reach out to families, caregivers, educators, and other important adults in kids' lives whose impact is vital to their growth. Yeah.
You know,
so much good
this
stuff.
year with the pandemic, a lot of children haven't been in school. And is there any thing that you could do,
Sure.
RIF Pittsburgh, to sort of get them back on track again?
Right, absolutely. So, yeah, the pandemic absolutely has presented many challenges to our kids and their families, and really it continues to do so, even as we, start to feel some semblance of normalcy. And since the beginning, really, we've adapted to the evolving needs of our kids, their families, and our longtime community partners. And we continue to do just that. So, for example, we are thrilled to be back in person at many of our schools, early childhood centers, and after-school sites, bringing the magic of reading to life in classrooms all across the city. And of course, that's our most favorite part of the job, is being in person with kiddos. And all of our programming comes wrapped in, or all of our books rather, come wrapped in programming that keep kids excited about reading. And so...
Oh, that's so important to keep.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, I remember years ago in my role as Mr. McFeely,
right.
I made many deliveries
Yes.
for RIF to the schools in a lot of the areas of Pittsburgh.
Right.
And I would go to the elementary and preschool classes, and then they would get I think they had a Steeler go to the older
Pittsburgh
classes
Steeler,
and
yep.
so forth. But RIF provided the books.
Right.
And delivering a book to a child in the classroom was so satisfying for me.
Exactly.
So thank you, RIF.
Yeah, I mean, and speaking to books, we are providing like a steady stream of high interest, diverse titles, like you said, that really keeps kids excited about reading and learning. And all of the books are also self-selected, which is wonderful, because then kids are getting something that they actually, are engaged by, rather than an adult saying, "Here's the book for you." So I think that's a really special thing about RIF.
And I hope when they take the books home that maybe it'll bring some families together too, reading the book.
Absolutely.
And
that's absolutely the goal.
It's not only learning to read, but it's also, as you said earlier, bonding.
Yes.
Reading can bond too.
Oh, yeah.
It's so important, and thank you. And the other thing that it's not just our RIF in Pittsburgh,
Right.
but RIF is all around the country, right?
That is
Yes,
correct,
that's
yes.
correct.
Most major cities have a RIF office or
affiliate, exactly.
an outlet or something, right? Well, you're doing terrific work.
Thank you. Yeah, we're having a lot of fun.
And I really love how you're able to now get back into the neighborhoods.
Right.
Because, you know, David, one of the statistics that I've been seeing is the fact that, you know, during the pandemic, literacy levels have gone down, and in some states they've actually plummeted.
Right.
So I really love the fact that you were talking about, you know, what we can do, and reading is fundamental. Pittsburgh is doing a fantastic job with that. What we can do to be able to get children back on the right track, and this is one of the reasons why we do this bookcast, is to be able to provide these resources of care, such as Dr. Roth's Real Doctor series for children, to let children know that there are books out there that can inspire them, that can, you know, help them to set their trajectory for the rest of their life, and to make things easier on parents and educators. Because, you know, during the pandemic, parents and educators have been stretched thin, so to speak. So to be able to have, you know, your organization, you know, leading the way and taking some of the burden and the stress off of parents and educators, I think that that's wonderful. And you personally are also leading the way for the Book Babies program at Reading is Fundamental Pittsburgh. Can you talk to us about this very special program and the positive impact that it's really having on an individual level with the little ones, like one-on-one, and the collective feel, the collective level that it's having on the entire city of Pittsburgh?
Sure. So yes, Book Babies is very near and dear to my heart. So I'm always really excited to speak about what we're doing with Book Babies. Our Book Babies initiative provides tools, information, and support to help caregivers really foster and nurture early literacy development in children birth through 3 years old. And story time is really the bread and butter of Book Babies, or the holy grail of Book Babies, where we read, talk, sing, play, and create, so crafting and that kind of thing. And pre-pandemic, all of our story times occurred right on the Storymobile, which is a library on wheels, for those of you who don't know. Those story times would occur right on the Storymobile in neighborhoods throughout the city. You know, so being right in the neighborhood makes it easy for people to access that space. And so on the Storymobile, families are able to connect with other families and share the joys and challenges of parenthood, raising kids, but also share with one another and gain skills to build vocabulary and early literacy in their children. And it's also just a lot of fun.
It sounds like it. It really is.
Yes.
Go and read too? Are you one of the readers?
Yes, I am. Yep. I'm the face of Book Babies. Everything, you know, I really have a part in all aspects of the program, so that's why it's so special to me.
And you mentioned, is it a bookmobile, did you say?
So yes, typically, so we have 4 Storymobiles, and the programming, you know, pre-pandemic occurred right on the Storymobile. So there's something really magical about, you know, a small child kind of getting on this massive bus that's just wall-to-wall books.
I would love that. I would love the mobile
Oh, you'll have
as a
to
kid.
come see it sometime.
But you are nonprofit, right?
Correct.
So what can people do who are watching our bookcast or help RIF?
Well, we would love for you to join us on social media. You can find us on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at RIF Pittsburgh. Also, if you live in Pittsburgh and have 1 hour a week to spend with a child, we would love to have you as an Everybody Wins or RIF Readers mentor, working with a buddy weekly to have fun around reading. And then also we do accept monetary donations as well. And you can find all of our social media handles online and learn more about how to get involved at www.rifpittsburgh.org.
So I would think that anywhere around the United States, they can find out what their local RIF organization is doing, right?
I'm sure,
And contact them and support them. Since this bookcast goes to many neighborhoods.
Yes, absolutely.
That's very true, and you know, it's I'm so glad, David, that we have been partnering with Reading is Fundamental Pittsburgh and that we've been able to give back through PR from the Heart and the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast. Because there's different ways that you can support. If you can open up your wallet, that's one way. If you can donate children's books, it's another way. If you can give time with the little one, there's different ways to pledge your support. And again, we're very blessed and honored and humbled and grateful to be able to support the wonderful work that you guys are doing. It's interesting, Dave, because this is the first time in 18 months since I moved out to San Diego from Buffalo that I've actually been out here on the East Coast. And I knew that it had to be something very special. And you know what happens when we hear the trolley, of course.
Oh, yes.
That means that it is time to go. This has been such a wonderful episode. I might get a little misty-eyed as we begin to close down our time here on episode number 14 of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast. We, of course, if all of these messages that we have been sharing, this entire episode number 14 of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast, if this episode, Dr. Roth's books, the Real Doctor series for little ones, if they have inspired you, if they've brought joy, love, healing into your heart, if you say, if anything, you know what? Now I can tell my little ones that they can be anything that they want when they grow up, whether it be a veterinarian, whether it be another doctor, or just anything that their heart desires. We encourage you, if you haven't had the opportunities to do so, to subscribe to PR from the Heart's official YouTube channel and to share this very special trolley stop that has been episode number 14 of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast. And David, this has also been, I know that I still have got some more time while I'm here in Pittsburgh and time that we can spend together in the process. This has been such a joy being able to work with you over the course of this past year. It's interesting because I know that many people, we have a mutual friend by the name of Colton DeBias, who has a wonderful initiative in Pittsburgh called Live Like Fred. If our favorite neighbor, Mr. Rogers, was still around here in the physical, many people might say, well, I want to be the next Mr. Rogers. I want to be the next Mr. Rogers. But I feel that it's important. We're all in our own way doing Fred's work. We're carrying on his legacy and also being ourselves in the process. Right. And I think that that's so important to be able to remind our little ones of that in the process. But there are many more magical trolley stops to come. It's going to be a little sad because that for the time being, David's going to go back to the squares on a screen. That's what I like to call, the whole platform that we normally have in the process. But if you are a children's author and you would like for David and I to be able to share your brand new children's book on a forthcoming edition of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast, you can head on over to our official website at prfromtheheart.com, or you can connect with us via any of our social media platforms that you now see on screen, all at PR From the Heart, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We also want to be able to give a couple of tips of the cap to one of our favorite neighbors in San Diego, California, Laura Cavanaugh. She is the host and executive producer of San Diego Living, of course, on the CW San Diego CBS 8, the official home of Empowering Reads for Kids, which is the official television book review segment of PR From the Heart. So if you are a children's author and you would like to have Laura and I share your brand new children's book or books with everyone in America's finest city, children, parents, families, educators, those who love great children's books, and to have your book or books be featured on Empowering Reads for Kids, you can connect with us via our official website. It's interesting, David, because America's finest city is the nickname of San Diego, California, but Pittsburgh holds a special place in my heart. It very well could be also America's finest city as well in the process. And we also want to give a little tip of the cap to some of our favorite neighbors back in San Diego, as well at Unity Church of El Cajon. We are proud to be able to give back to children, parents, and families in the San Diego area through the Unity of El Cajon Story Time with Mr. John. So if you are a children's author and would love for me to be able to share your brand new children's book on a forthcoming edition of the Unity of El Cajon Story Time with Mr. John, you know where to connect with us at our official website, prfromtheheart.com, or any of our social media platforms on screen. And of course, if you are a children's author and would like to be able to create your own book media tour in a city of your choosing, if you would like for us to be of service to you at PR From the Heart, you can connect with us via our official website, schedule a courtesy discovery call, and see how we can be of service to you. Because, David, these sorts of messages like Dr. Roth, they need to get out there far and wide in the process. Again, we also want to give a special shout out to Dr. Roth, who joined us, episode number 14 of the Bookcast.
And a special shout out to Jordan,
Yes.
who is probably on her way to read a book now to children.
That is absolutely right.
I wouldn't be surprised. And also a special shout out to Alec Walker, the office manager as well, too, has been helping behind the scenes to bring our wonderful relationship to form and shape. So great meeting you, and so great meeting Alec in the process. Again, Reading is Fundamental Pittsburgh, we are proud to support through the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast each and every month. As we like to say, no donation is too large, no donation is too small. Yeah. You can head on over to rifpittsburgh.org/donate. And of course, you can learn more about the wonderful work of Reading is Fundamental Pittsburgh. Continue to stay in touch with them on social media in the process as well, too. And, you know, David, even though he's not with us here in the physical realm, you know, let's also give a little tip of the cap to one of our favorite neighbors, Mr. Rogers. Now, he reminded us each and every day, and he kind of did it through his favorite series of numbers in his own private numerology. He always liked to say 143.
That's right.
1 letter in I, 4 letters in love, and 3 letters in you, right? Well, as a little tip of the cap to Mr. Rogers here at the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast, since Jordan was kind enough to join us today, Dr. Roth was kind enough to join us today, you were kind enough to join me. We're all here, we're all being kind and enjoying one another's company. We like to remind all of you, our listeners and viewers, our friends and neighbors, and of course our fellow shining stars, 243. As there's 2 letters in we, 4 letters in love, 3 letters in you. We are reminding all of you that you are loved, that you are special, just the way that you are perfect, you are whole, you are healthy, you are complete, just the way that you are in the process, that you can be anything that you want when you grow up, whether you're a child or you're an adult, and you still have more on the journey as well, too.
And it could be 443.
It could be 443.
With Jordan?
That is true. That is true. It could be 443. It's an interesting way of being able to look at things. And David, since we're here in studio, is there any parting shots that you wanted to share? Anything from your heart to our listeners and viewers as we officially close out the bookcast?
Well, as I think I said it a little earlier, that the 2 books we read or talked about today were I think they're 2 of my favorite, because there was so much information there, and that in a way, anybody can be almost anything they want to be. Of course, there are exceptions. There are always exceptions.
Yes.
But both books show how, if you want to be something, you've got to work at it. You've got to do it. Mr. Rogers has a song, you've got to do it. If you want to ride a bicycle and ride it straight and tall, you've got to do it. Yes. And I think that's what I'd like to say, and that comes in books, too.
Yes. It's a very important message that all of us are learning and integrating. You got to do it. Eventually you get to the point where
no matter how old.
Exactly. Right. There's times we can just say, you know, we're going to do something, but eventually you have to get to that point where you just do it in the process. I've enjoyed every single moment of our time here together, but again, do not worry, there are many more magical trolley stops to come. We want to thank all of you for your continued support of PR from the Heart, your continued support of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast, your continued support of children's authors and illustrators such as Dr. Cherice Roth, who are doing wonderful and much needed work for children, parents, families, educators, and those who love great children's books, which once again we provided Dr. Roth's official website and her social media platforms below so that you can continue the conversation with Dr. Roth post Neighborly Reviews Bookcast, and of course again both of her brand new books in the Real Doctor series for little ones, What's a Real Doctor and What Does a Real Doctor Look Like? They're available via her official website and Amazon. We want to thank you for your continued support of local libraries and children's and independent bookstores, truly the pillars and the fabric of our community. But above all else, as we like to say, we want to thank you for helping us to walk home the children of the world. So for Jordan Williams at Reading is Fundamental Pittsburgh, for David Newell, for myself, John Masiulionis, we want to thank all of you. And one last final shout out to the hardworking team at the Center for Media Innovation, all the people behind the scenes. We want to thank Wayne, we want to thank Olivia, we want to thank Tara in the process. They are not only shining stars right here, but they're also bright lights, some of the most beautiful bright lights here in the city of Pittsburgh. So if you ever look at the skies above and there's the stars shining in the sky, I wouldn't be surprised if people around the world are naming those stars Olivia and Wayne and Tara.
Well, then you'll have to hold the star up one more time.
I'll have to. I wish I had 3 of them. I only brought 1 from San Diego. You can only fit so much in
your luggage. That's right.
In my luggage. But again, we want to thank you for your continued support of just everything that we're doing here at the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast. And above all else, we want to thank you again for helping us to walk home the children of the world. We look forward to seeing all of you once again next month for episode number 15 of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast. I'm going to go back to a square and a screen. David's going to go back to a square and a screen. But let's set the intention right now that we'll be joining all of you once again at some point in time soon, possibly in the fall, for another in-studio edition of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast.
In the meantime, Jordan will be out reading.
Yes.
That's right.
Yes. Thank you for helping us to walk home the children of the world, our fellow friends, our fellow neighbors, and our fellow shining stars. Goodbye for now.
Bye-bye.